So hey guys, it's Thoughts a Lot with the third part of my anime What If. Thank you guys for the support on the last two videos. It's actually been pretty amazing, I'm not gonna lie. I really didn't expect this kind of reception to it. There's quite a few of you actually actively kind of waiting and really enjoying the parts, and I do quite enjoy writing them, so I'm really glad you guys enjoy it. So starting off with part 3, we begin from part 2, where we left off with Deku in mid-air being attacked, and the Sludge villain actually trying to attach to him and take over him. So the villain looks worried as Deku's actually in mid-air, but he doesn't look scared. And suddenly he sees multiple fireballs come towards him as Deku's kicking in mid-air, and a flurry of these rather large fireballs actually hit the Sludge villain, and steam starts to rise from his body as he's getting injured. Now, Deku might have trained, but he isn't actually a fully fledged avatar, and so A, he doesn't have full control over the avatar state, and B, he hasn't mastered bending. He hasn't mastered any of the elements completely, and he hasn't even started airbending properly, as that's actually the reason he's rushing home today in this story. So the Sludge villain cackles viciously at Deku, a bit annoyed, but as Deku lands, he flattens out and he pounces towards his ankles, proceeding to wrap around him. Deku tries to move away, pushing him away with some earth, but the Sludge villain simply ignores him, as his body is made of liquid. Now, the Sludge villain starts to wrap around him. Deku tries to water bend his body, but his body isn't made of water, it's made of some weird substance that Deku really can't tell what it is. He starts to feel a little bit scared, and this is new for Deku, as he actually had quite great power in this timeline. He's never really had any reason to fear, and he feels it start to slowly wrap around his neck and cover his entire body with this horrible feeling. And just as he's fading in and out of consciousness, and before he passes out, his eyes open and glow bright blue. Deku coats himself in this sphere of wind, blowing the villain away, and he floats above the ground for a moment. The Sludge villain turns around, confused, and looks back at his opponent. He becomes awestruck and utterly terrified. In unison, the voices of all of the previous avatars, as well as Deku's, say, "Leave this place and never return. You've invoked the wrath of the avatar." The Sludge villain looks timidly, nods a bit, and starts to slowly back away. All the commotion actually causes All Might, who's nearby, to notice, transform into his buff form, and just as this happens, he skids around the corner. Now, as he comes around the corner, he screams, "I am here!" And Deku, being out of danger now, comes out of the avatar state and passes out onto the ground. All Might sees this, he sees the villain slightly injured and the kid on the ground, and he causes a massive air pressure wave with one of his smashes, knocking the Sludge villain out. Just like in the original timeline, he goes ahead and bottles him up, and just as he's finishing up, Deku wakes up. He doesn't need to get woken up by All Might in this one. He's got a little bit more, he's had a bit of training and he's a little bit more strong in this timeline. So he wakes up on his own accord and sees All Might. Now, Deku, being the little nerd he is, he looks in awe as he sees his idol right in front of his eyes, in the flesh. His eyes glisten with tears and he shrieks out like a little fangirl, like, "All Might, it's really you." All Might smiles and says, "No need to worry, young man. I am here." Deku gets his autograph in his notebook, and just as he's about to leave with the Sludge villain, Deku actually asks him a slightly different question than in the original series. He asks, "Even though I have a long way to go to master my quirk, do you think I could still be a hero like you?" All Might looks at Deku, puzzled. He's now fully recovered thanks to, his stronger body due to the training, and he looks at him and he says, "Don't you worry, you have a strong quirk to have put the villain in such a state before I arrived. I believe you can become a great hero one day. Maybe even greater than me," he laughs. All Might proceeds to jump away, and in this timeline, I could make him hand the bottle to the police, and it would make sense. Deku isn't going to grab to his leg all kind of traumatized, and it's going to emit the whole of the Sludge villain attack, but that's a bit boring. And so what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to say that All Might drops the bottle by accident, which is, a little bit stupid, but it's going to lead to something interesting happening in this timeline. I'm going to say that Deku actually gets home. He's a little bit faster. He gets home and, he continues with his training. But as Bakugo's actually walking home, he sees this bottle fall out the sky. And this bottle is, it's kind of weird. It's got this green stuff inside, and so he kicks it. And, he's a little bit frustrated that, Deku's gotten even stronger now, and, he's a bit, worried. I mean, he's not horrible to Deku in this timeline. He's actually got some respect for him, but he still wants to be number one. He sees Deku as a threat, and seeing him get stronger does put a little bit of worry in his mind. And so he sees this bottle, kicks it, and the lid actually comes off. The Sludge villain comes out, and we end up with the Sludge villain part 2 attack, but this time Deku isn't there. And also, another thing is that All Might still has his time limit left. He's not strained from having to deal with Deku. So he goes ahead, he hears the second Sludge villain attack, he notices the bottle's gone, and he's like, oh god, this is my fault. He sees Bakugo being attacked and, being enveloped, and none of the other heroes are helping. And so he jumps in, and he screams, I am here, and smashes the villain again. Again, the villain goes away, All Might praises Bakugo, but this time he's not, seeing Deku. He hasn't got Deku to compare Bakugo to, and so he only sees the heroism that Bakugo displayed by trying to fight away the villain, even as he was being attacked. He sees he's strong and has potential. And so I'm actually going to say that Bakugo gets one for all in this timeline, just because it would make things interesting in the sense that Deku's already got a strong quirk in this timeline, and so having Bakugo actually kind of rival that with one for all as well. And since they're similar types of quirks, it would be really interesting to see. And so, instead of just giving it to Mirio as was initially intended and going, oh yeah, Mirio gets a quirk in this one, as happens in a lot of what ifs, which makes sense logically, I'm going to say that Bakugo actually gets it. And since Bakugo's already got a quirk, he's a little bit more accustomed to, knowing how to control one. And so I'm actually going to say that during his training, he does develop his own kind of version of full howling. Now, we're not going to call it full howling, but he's going to develop, control over one for all. He's going to be able to use it in the way it was initially intended by actually getting it through his entire body rather than just focusing it and injuring himself. And we're going to say that since he's, initially stronger, after all the training, by the time the UA entrance exams come around, he can actually use about 10% of one for all, which is going to be a decent amount of power. And given, all the training that Deku does as well, we're actually going to say that he learns a decent amount of airbending. So given his training with airbending and, continuing to train with the other elements, we're going to say that he's actually managed to master earthbending, given, his control over earth as a natural element, since that was the reincarnation he was actually supposed to be born into. So he's mastered earthbending, he's getting fairly proficient with airbending. He's still not got the grips of it completely, given, it is the opposite element to his. He's got some control over it now, though. He's starting to get a bit more used to it. So Bakugo and Deku continue to train just intensely for the next few months. It's going along fairly well, and Deku's actually gone fairly strong in this timeline. But Bakugo, yeah, given that he's got one for all, it's going to boost his initial quirk, and also it's going to lead to some interesting occurrences, given the fact that now we've got two kind of these great, amazing powerhouses inside of the story. So I'm actually going to make this part a little bit longer and actually do the practical exams as well in the same part. So with the practical exams begin, we're going to say that, they do fairly well they're going to do a little bit better on the written exams, given that at the same time as the training going on, first off, Deku isn't straining himself with the one for all training, trying to make his body stronger. He's got a little bit more time to meditate and relax and study. So he can actually do a significant amount better on the written exam, as well as Bakugo having a little bit more motivation since he's got one for all now. So he's actually going to do still a decent amount better on the written exam. So they both do a little bit better on the written exam. Even though that doesn't affect the story, I thought it would just be nice to kind of put in that change. But, just they're a little bit more mentally there for the exams at this point. So it can actually lead to them having better scores and better decisions, as well as just a written exam score slightly. So the practical exams begin. We're going to have the whole incident with Deku tripping a little bit as well, and, Uraraka kind of saving him. And they're still going to have the kind of quick interaction where they just go, oh, hi, you exist. And, it carries on. Deku, Bakugo sit next to each other in the explanation with Present Mic. They explain the robot system, blah, blah, blah. You're going to have a physical exam. There's going to be robots. There's going to be a 0-point robot, so on and so forth. It all happens pretty much the same as in the anime until the point where it starts. So Ida continues to scold Deku as he tries to talk to Uraraka, and the timer begins. So as soon as the timer begins, this is a different Deku. Deku's focused, and he gets this intense look in his eyes, ignores him, looks straight forwards, and actually creates this launch pad for himself with earthbending. He creates a ripple in the ground and shoots forward and ahead of the crowd massively. He sees one of the robots, and just as he's about to touch the ground again from his initial burst forwards, he pushes himself into the air with a gust of wind, and in midair he flips around and performs this great crescent kick aimed straight at one of the robot's heads, and he crashes a gigantic fireball into its center, blowing it up. Now everybody's stunned. Three quirks? The control of earth, air, and fire? What is this? Nobody's ever heard of something like this. So they all just stop and stare for a minute at this kid who's just going around destroying these robots with all these different powers that he's showing faster than anyone can actually imagine. So after a few moments of ogling, everybody returns to actually trying to destroy the robots and rack up some points because, the exam is timed. And it happens unimpeded for a few moments, just like in the anime, everybody's trying to go around destroying the robots. And then the 0 point robot appears. So everybody starts screaming and running away. And Deku, he's still Deku. He sees the robot and he's a little bit more cocky in this timeline. He just kind of looks at it and he's initially thinking about running away, but he stares for a moment and he's like, just smiles for a second. And he's like, this kind of looks like a fun challenge. But then everything changes a little bit. He hears a scream as he hears Uraraka is actually trapped under the rubble. Now, he still doesn't know who this person is properly, but he's hearing someone screamed, and Deku being Deku, he wants to save them. He hears this woman trapped underneath the rubble, and so he jumps towards the robot, and he sees how large this thing is, and he feels incredibly threatened. He feels something come over him, and after all of his meditation and practice with, learning all the elements, now that he's got a mastery of all the elements, he's getting closer to being a fully fledged avatar. And so, as a result, he's actually starting to gain some control over the avatar state. And we see Deku's eyes glow that same bright blue that we're kind of used to at this. And we see a crater in the ground and hear a massive bang. Everyone turns around to see this giant crater in the ground. And this kid, this same insane kid, floating in the air, being carried by this kind of cushion of wind. They see his kind of eyes glowing bright blue. And then they hear a crack as one of the skyscrapers from the urban zone, the stone skyscrapers, flies towards this robot's head just as it's about to step onto this poor girl. They see this giant skyscraper smashing into the side of the 0 point robot's head. The robot is decimated as the building easily crushes the robot's head, with both the giant 0 point robot and the building lying several hundred meters from where they started, and a massive crash reverberates through the entire arena. Now, Deku slowly comes back towards the ground and stumbles for a moment as his eyes return to normal. He's still not used to the avatar state, even after all these months of training, and he's still not a fully fledged avatar, so it still takes his toll. And he's feeling a bit faint, so he walks towards the girl, quickly earth bends the rubble off of her, and still feeling a bit faint, he drops to his knees in exhaustion. The girl asks if he's okay. He just gives her a little thumbs up. Being Deku, he's not as shy as he was since he's got a bit more confidence, but he's still a bit shy. He can't really come out with the words, especially with how tired he is. So he just gives her a thumbs up and she continues on her way, helping him up a little bit. And he just takes a moment to breathe as she continues to try and get points. So he's regained his composure after a moment. It's been about half a minute. He's regained his composure. And just as he's about to start again, he hears the timer go off. And that's it. It's the end of the exams for him. So he gets home and he doesn't know how to feel. He feels a bit confident. He got a decent number of points. He destroyed a bunch of robots. But he feels like he's lost a decent amount of time with that 0 point robot. Especially since the avatar state meant that he was so drained that he really couldn't go ahead and, kind of get more points after the initial point. He goes home, but he's feeling a little bit confident. He receives a letter of acceptance. The same All Might kind of coming up like, hello, young man. And he actually gets a personalized message saying that he got second place with his record-breaking score of 84 villain points and 30 rescue points. Now, the reason it's not 60 like in the original anime was because he did end up destroying a decent amount of the urban zone, given that, he threw a skyscraper. And, but second place. Weird, isn't it? Who got first place? Now, some of you might have figured this out, but One For All Bakugo actually ended up getting first place. Now, he didn't get any rescue points, just like in the original anime, but he did get a gigantic number of villain points. Keep in mind, he got the highest villain points even without One For All. Now that he's got 10% One For All, first off, his explosions are going to be better. Second off, he's going to be faster and stronger. And third off, he's just generally more confident, and he's got, you know, some training in this time as well, rather than just, you know, being confident in his abilities. So he's generally a lot better. And so I'm going to say that he's actually got more than double his score, even if it is only, you know, a little bit extra. And I'm going to say that he got 155 villain points in this timeline. So 155 villain points just from destroying robots. And in the 0-point robot that appeared in his arena, he also took it out. But, you know, there wasn't anybody trapped or anything. It was just the 0-point robot that he just felt a bit cocky. It's Bakugo. He just felt, you know what, screw this, I'm going to destroy it. And he did. So that's actually going to be the end of part 3. It's been pretty long. You know, we had 2 kind of major incidents go on. But next time, we're actually going to start off with Deku and Bakugo going to UA. You know, they're both really strong at this point, and it'll be really interesting to see their interactions with the rest of the cast. So, yeah, I hope to see you guys in the next kind of What If. Again, if you guys enjoyed it, then just leave a like, subscribe. You know, click the notification thing, because I'm trying to upload fairly frequently, and, you know, you'll get a nice notification whenever I do upload. And yeah, leave a comment with any suggestions and what you thought about it. You know, should Deku kind of use his avatar state more if, you know, it drains him so much? Should he try and train that? Should he try and master the elements so that he gets a more natural control over it? You know, I'm going to leave a lot of these kind of elements in the story a little bit up to you guys. I'm going to kind of use, you know, constructive criticism and, you know, any suggestions you guys have to improve the story and make it more enjoyable for you guys. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this time. If you guys enjoyed it, again, same stuff, but like, subscribe, comment, bell button thing. Yeah, that's it. I'll see you guys around in the next What If.